Does the wood in your electric guitar have any effect on its tone? After all, that pickup is converting the string vibration into an electrical signal. Well, let's see if we can find out. What is up everyone, ManBun Metalhead here. This is a video I've wanted to do for years, and finally it seems the stars have aligned. Back in the day when I used to peruse guitar forums, I remember there being strong opinions on whether or not your electric guitar wood affected its tone. I'm not sure if the same argument is still happening today, but I'm going to try to put an end to it. I have 4 guitars that I'll be doing some sound tests with. All the guitars have the exact same bridge pickup, the DiMarzio Crunch Lab, and 3 of them have the same neck pickup, the DiMarzio Air Norton. I've set the pickups to the same height below the strings, and they all have a set of fresh 1052 DR string high beams tuned to D standard. The differences in the guitars lie in their woods and constructions. First up is the Emerald Dragon, a custom guitar from Warmoth. The carved top body has an alder back and dual layer quilted maple top. It has a bolt-on flame maple neck with a Zeracody fretboard. The trim is a hardtail Hipshot baby grand. The second guitar in the lineup is Shredder, another custom guitar from Warmoth. The body is swamp ash with a flame maple veneer top, and it has a bolt-on roasted maple neck with Pau Ferro fretboard. The trim is a classic Floyd Rose. Third, we have an Ibanez RGT 42DX. This guitar is a neck-through construction with a 5-piece maple and walnut neck and mahogany wings for the body. The fretboard is rosewood and the trim is an Edge 2 floating locking trim, pretty much a Floyd. Last, we have a Jackson DK MGT. It has a carved top, alder body, and bolt-on maple neck with rosewood fretboard. The trim is a string-through Tune-o-matic. You might be thinking this is similar to the Emerald Dragon, which has an alder back and dual-layer quilted maple top. However, that maple top is about 3/4 of an inch thick, so it accounts for 40 to 50% of the overall volume of the body. Ideally, I'd have a whole bunch of different guitars that are the exact same body shape, construction, and trim, but you might be surprised to find out that I'm not making a boatload of money on YouTube. Frankly, I'm lucky I have 4 guitars with the same pickups. In my opinion, the neck construction and trim will have more of an effect on sustain, and body shape or size affects the volume of wood, and if the wood doesn't affect tone, then the shape shouldn't either, right? I'm going to do a couple different tests. The first is going to be plain riffs, which is a more subjective test, and the second will be a frequency analysis, which is more on the objective side. Feel free to check the time bar and skip around. For the riff test, I'll play 2 riffs, switching back and forth between the guitars. The first riff will be a clean riff on the neck pickup in single coil mode or coil tapped, using the coil closest to the neck. I'll be using 3 guitars for this test since the Ibanez has a different neck pickup. The second test will be a heavily distorted riff using the bridge pickup in series. For both these riffs, I'll be playing through my Mesa JP2C and custom 2x12 cab loaded with Celestion Vintage 30s. For effects on the clean track, I'll be using my Empress compressor, Boss EQ200, and Seymour Duncan Dark Sun for delay and reverb. For effects on the heavy track, I'll be using a Tube Screamer Mini for a little front end boost, Timeline for slapback delay, and Dark Sun for reverb. In my audio signature, I'll just apply some light EQ. All the clean tracks will have the same EQ as well as the heavy tracks. I do recommend listening to these tests on a good set of headphones or speakers to be able to pick up on the differences. Let's go. Alright, what did you think? Personally, I think the difference in clean tones are very obvious. The low end on the Dragon, which has the alder maple body, was much more pronounced than on the other two guitars. The highs of Shredder, which has the swamp ash body, are more pronounced, and I think the overall tone on the Jackson with the alder body is much more even compared to the other two. Listening to the heavy rhythm tracks, I think the differences are harder to differentiate, but still there. I can still hear the same differences that I heard between clean tracks. I think the Ibanez with mahogany body and maple walnut through-neck has a more pronounced bump in the highs compared to the other three. Feel free to go back and listen to those as many times as you want. For those of you not completely convinced or just like more data, let's look at a more objective approach. If you don't care to look at graphs, make sure to skip ahead and check out my conclusions, because I'll have a few more thoughts I'd like to share. Alright, let's get into some nerdy stuff. Tone can pretty much be characterized by the audio frequency spectrum. The more energy in a specific range, the more the characteristics of the frequency will stand out. At a basic level, you have lows, mids, and highs, and you can break those down even further, but this isn't a mixing theory video. By individually looking at and comparing the frequency profiles these guitars output, we should be able to see the differences in tone. So, how are we going to do that? I spent a lot of time trying different tests, probably more time than I should have. But what I came up with should work pretty well. I plugged each guitar directly into the recording interface and played an open note with my thumb 3 times on each string. Then ran all those notes through the Vox & Go Span Plus plugin to get a maximum frequency profile. I took out any notes that were suspect, like if I hit them with a fingernail on accident or something like that. I definitely still had at least one note from each string though. This is essentially playing an open chord on each guitar, but in a much more controlled way. I used 1/6 octave smoothing and a negative 4.5 slope on the Spectrum Analyzer if you care. First, let's take a look at the single coil neck pickups. You can see I've overlaid the 3 signals with the blue line being the Alder Jackson, green the Maple Alder Dragon, and red the Swamp Ash Shredder. Each signal is centered in the graph, meaning the overall output of each signal is set to about negative 23 decibels, giving each signal an equal grounding. We can definitely see the Maple Alder guitar has quite a bit more energy in the low frequencies and less in the higher frequencies, whereas the Swamp Ash guitar is much more distinctive in the high frequencies and cut in the lows. The Alder guitar is between the other two in the highs and lows and sits a little higher in the mids. I think this fits pretty well with what I was able to hear. Let's move on to the bridge pickup in series. The first thing I noticed with these signals is they are much less spread out, meaning the differences in tone will be less apparent compared to the previous set. We can see similar results in the lows and highs of the previous 3 guitars. You might also notice the Maple Alder body is a bit more pronounced in the high mids, but tapers off just before 2 kHz. The mahogany body appears to be lower in lows but higher in the highs, and lower in the mids, but a little flatter overall. Again, I think this coincides with what I noticed in the sound tests. So, can we definitively answer the question, does body wood affect electric guitar tone? Yes, but with some caveats. We saw there was a much larger tonal difference in the neck pickup. This could be because of the pickup itself or the position of the pickup. Unfortunately, I don't have enough pickups or guitars to definitively answer that question. Any guitar or pickup manufacturers out there want to sponsor me? But to go back to the question at hand, your guitar body wood will affect the tone of your instrument. It's all a question of how much. Well, that's all I have to say about electric guitar wood tone. I'd really be interested to hear what you guys have to say about it, so leave some comments below. Hopefully this video helped you out. If it did, hit that like button down there below. It really helps me out a lot. And if you want to see more of my videos on guitar gear reviews, tips, tricks, and techniques, don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell icon so you're notified whenever I release a new video. But hey, until next time, rock on.